You're listening to the Primal Happiness Show, a podcast dedicated to helping you thrive in this crazy modern world. Every Tuesday, we explore the nature of how our minds really work, what exactly the human animal requires to thrive, and how we can live happier and more fulfilling lives. If you're new here and haven't yet taken our free class, then there's no better place to get a jump start on reclaiming your primal happiness. It's where we'll guide you step by step through our antidote to today's modern world. Simply head on over to primalhappiness.co/antidote to get the free class and discover how to thrive without having to move to a planet that's not so crazy as ours. But now, your host, Lian Brook-Tyler.
Hello, my beautiful people. A huge warm welcome back to the show. In today's crazy modern world, men and women are living shallow, disconnected, and unfulfilling lives. So we created the path for those who are ready to reclaim their wildness and actualize their deepest gifts. And the next way that you can walk that path is by joining our brand new crucible, Waking the Wild Medicine. This is for you. If you know you came here to do important, much needed work, but despite all the years of seeking, you still haven't discovered exactly what it is. If you're clear on what you came here to do, but the normal ways of doing business just don't feel aligned to you, and maybe just aren't working that well either. If you've been successful creating a living doing something else, but you know that your soul is now calling you towards something much, much deeper. Or if you're already doing your precious soul work, but you know you're now ready to create a previously undreamed of level of impact with it. You'll be joining a potent, intimate circle of sovereign men and women, each of you feeling the call to embody your soul work. We'll be harnessing divine archetypes, real magic, and deep embodied rituals to aid you in the reclamation and actualization of the gifts of your wild medicine. The gifts that you'll awaken and actualize are uncovering the wild medicine of your soul, the gift to the world that you came here to be. You'll create potent ways to administer this medicine via your own unique embodiment in alignment with divine archetypal energies. You will be liberated to become the fullest expression of your soul, giving your deepest gifts in service to the world. In material terms, this means you become available for an abundance of connection, impact, and wealth, and actually anything else that your soul desires to flow as you. If you're feeling called to this deepest of journeys, and it really isn't for everyone, we know that, but if you are feeling this call, go claim your place now at primalhappiness.co/medicine, or reach out if you'd like to arrange a call to explore if it's right for you. And now on to this week's episode. It's my monthly show, All the Everything, where I jam on an eclectic mix of topics. This is where you can get up close and personal with me, get inside my head and see what I'm up to and thinking about. It also airs live on Facebook on the first Friday of every month, usually around 2 p.m. UK time. In this episode, I dive deep into what I've been consuming, what I've been creating, and then into the topic, how to see possibility in times of fear. I spoke about the 3 different ways that fear shows up and how we can respond most powerfully and soulfully to each of them. Sounds like that's something for you? Let's jump in. Hello and welcome to October's All the Everything. And as ever, we are going to dive into 3 things. 1, what I've been creating over the last month, what I've been consuming over the last month, and then we're going to dive deep into a topic chosen by our gorgeous Facebook group members, I've actually forgotten the blasted topic. I know the topic. I can't remember what we called the blasted. I'm sure if you're listening to this, you know the topic. It's to do, how to see possibilities in times of fear. My goodness, I'm professional today. And so this, again, was one of the topics, the topic chosen out of a selection of topics posted into the Facebook group, and which my husband was very pleased about because it's actually his suggestion of topic. And I think I will say a bit more about this when I dive into it, but I think that could be seen as times of fear, meaning cultural times of fear, as has been driven up a lot during this year. But everything I'm going to be saying isn't just about those kind of big cultural happenings. It's very much from a personal lived experience, whatever's going on for you personally. Everything I'm going to say is going to be relevant no matter what that fear is. I'm also going to talk to great, the dog's decided he doesn't want to be an audience for this. So if you're thinking, oh my goodness, I've just heard enough of trying to navigate 2020, or I'm sick to death of hearing people talk about COVID, this really isn't about that. It'll be applicable if that's the kind of fear that's most alive for you, but it absolutely isn't specifically about that. Okay, so let's dive into the topics. We have got what I've been consuming over this last month. And as ever, I've been consuming lots of books in particular. It isn't always, if this is the first time you've listened, I don't always talk about a book I've consumed, but about 99% of the time it is. Occasionally, it might be a film, or something we've seen at the theatre, or something like that. But generally it's a book, just because it's my preferred medium of consumption. And this time, really excited to recommend this, actually. It's called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, and it's by Joseph Murphy. If you're watching live, you'll be able to see the snazzy cover there. And this was recommended in another book that I read, and I can't remember for the life of me what the other book was. It was about similar ideas of the power of the subconscious mind and things of that nature. And it referenced this book as being very influential on the author of the book. I can't remember. And I bought it at the time. I don't think it was available on Kindle. And so I bought this potentially secondhand. I'm not sure. It might have been secondhand. But anyway, bought it as a paperback, and then it's been living in one of my drawers for that makes it sound like knickers. I don't know if you're English, but I think it's an English saying. We sometimes call knickers, as in underwear drawers. I don't know why it made it sound like I've had this book tucked in my underwear for the last couple of years. I haven't. It was in an actual wooden drawer. Had it clear out the other day and found this book. I thought, why did I not read it at the time? So I started reading it, and oh my goodness, it is fabulous, absolutely fabulous. It goes into areas that you could call, again, understand the role of the subconscious, priming your mind, manifestation, magic. But the way it does it is so varied, and also almost like has this kind of programming your subconscious mind to believe in the power of your subconscious mind. So it's quite meta in the way that it does it. So I can absolutely wholeheartedly recommend this. I've been amazed by the depth and also breadth. It covers lots of different chapter or topics, let's say, like different topics, like could be wealth, it could be health, it could be relationships, all different topics of how you can use the subconscious mind in a way to create whatever results, success that you want. But it also gives lots of different ways to do that. So I found that there's often commonalities between us in terms of things that work well. And there's often quirks where you'll find one way of doing something works really well for you, but doesn't for someone else. So it gives you loads of different ways. You can really like practice and play with the ways that are feeling aligned to you. So yeah, if you're interested in, I suspect, if you're listening to this show, you're interested in similar things too. I am. So wholeheartedly recommend that. What have I been creating? As ever, absolutely tons. I often share that I don't have like a fixed number in terms of a ratio, but I kind of loosely live within this ratio of lots more creation compared to how much I consume. So it's very intentional. It's very easy in our culture to become much more consumption based. So when I say consumption, for a lot of people, that will be consuming a lot of Netflix. It could also be food. All sorts of ways that we often consume in our culture that becomes quite unconscious, addictive, like patterns of consumption that we're not even really choosing into. And it's not again to say that consumption's wrong. It can be fuel in all kinds of ways. Like one of the ways that we get fueled as creators, as artists, is to consume art. So, for example, as someone who wouldn't call myself a poet necessarily, I'd probably call myself a writer, but I do particularly love poetry. To become a better poet, consuming poetry is probably one of the most recommended ways. So we'll often notice that there is this beautiful cycle of consumption we can be in, but it definitely creates a kind of stagnation if we are then not moving it through into creation. And because, again, I know in this culture, we're going to be unconsciously pushed into more consumption than perhaps is serving for us. So I keep this awareness on what am I creating today? What am I creating? Which can be all sorts of things. I write in all kinds of different ways all the time. I'm always in the midst of creating some kind of program or other. I might be up to something in my home life, and that could be baking, it could be painting, could be redoing a room, all sorts of things. And so I don't have any sort of snobbery as to like the type of creation, but just very mindfully being in creation is something that is just very, very important. Doesn't quite do it justice. It's just a way of life for me. So anyway, with that spiel out the way, into what I've been creating this month. And again, many, many things. The place I'm feeling most drawn to talk to is Waking the Wild Medicine, which is our forthcoming circle, probably the end of November. We haven't actually agreed the date yet. And this feels like a very personal kind of rites of passage or initiation into, it's quite meta actually. Ultimately, it's about guiding others, helping others, supporting others to embody and express their soul work. And this is our soul work, mine and Jonathan's. The sort of deepest expression of us being the gift we came here to be, a huge part of it at least appears to be helping others to make contact with that unique gift that they are, that unique medicine they are, and to then birth that into the world, to be the gift they came here to be. So we've been doing that in various ways for many years. Specifically did I say specifically then? I think I did, specifically in one-to-one coaching, but it very much is an element of all the other things we do. If we're doing a group program, it's going to have an element of uncovering the gift they came here to be. The difference with wild medicine is it's taking those principles, that kind of path that we take people in our one-to-one programs down, so they really understand who they are. Again, that unique gift they came here to be. And then the bit that's very unique to this is it's specifically through the lens of that being their work. So ultimately, we're all a gift. We're a gift in terms of with our families, with our friends, with our neighbours, all of those things. It's very specific. What is work with me today? Specifically about how people can be that gift in their work. Often that will be work as their own business. Often that will be a change maker or an artist, a creator of some kind. And how they can really make contact with that deepest medicine. And again, the really important piece is be able to express that into the world in a way that serves them and others. So it's, again, very, very intentional around that, but also it's so, what's the word? It's radiating out from a circle. Anyone who's knows our work, we use the idea of circle, people coming together in intimate circles is something really dear to our hearts. And so we've intentionally created Wake Wild Medicine around this idea of a sovereign circle. So everyone in that is here to be that embodiment of their soul work in the world. So that ends up being, that's medicine in itself, sitting with others in that way, allowing them to witness and be witnessed is part of that, huge part of that. So it really is. I can't even quite find the word. It's beyond excited. It's beyond grateful. It's beyond blessed. Certainly a bit of fear there too, just to be clear, which I'll be talking about in a moment. But it feels like the deepest alignment of work that we have done to date. Yeah, incredible. So I'll probably give another invitation to this at the end. And you may well, as you're listening, actually, I'll probably be referring at certain points to a certain way that the people who are going to be right for wild medicine experience certain kinds of fear. I'll probably be talking about that as we go. So if you're listening to that and you feel that could be you, make sure you check out Wake in the Wild Medicine at the end. Again, we're starting probably November, definitely in the winter. And it's going to be a circle of a maximum of 11 people. So limited numbers. Again, very, very intentional because we really want to keep that intimate circle at the heart of it. And so already people have either enrolled or are heavily interested in conversations about kind of how they can make it happen, childcare, logistics, and all that kind of stuff. So the spaces will go. If you're feeling called, go check it out. I'll give the link now, but I'll give it again at the end. It's primalhappiness.co/medicine. Okay, and take a breath and then dive into the main topic. So again, this topic was chosen by the members of our Facebook group. And if you're one of those choosers, thank you very much. It really helps me. I love to be able to talk to something that is a question or a kind of demand for something. So that really helps me. It gives me something to respond to. And when I suggested, I didn't really have a clear, often I don't, I come up with a topic, or in this case, my husband came up with a topic. And it wasn't like I had a idea really of what I'll talk about. I mean, I talk about fear and possibility lots in our work because it's something that shows up quite a lot, but it wasn't like I had a really good idea of what exactly I was going to talk about today. I've been pondering it and also just really noticing how this idea, this sort of juxtaposition of fear and possibility has been showing up recently in my life and then that of my clients, my friends. And I came to this sense that we could, and what I'm about to say isn't the truth. These are kind of like ideas to try and emphasize that might provide you with a lens into something that's helpful. So none of this is kind of like, this is exactly the three ways that fear is categorized. But I was seeing it as there's a type of fear that is like a real threat. So like idea of like a primal, real threat to your safety or life. And they're really obvious ones, you know, kind of the cliched being attacked by a saber-toothed tiger, about to fall off a bridge. I don't know where that one came from. But those things where there is no need to kind of sit there thinking like, is this a real threat? Or is it like, you know, it's a threat, you're going to attend to it. You don't even need me to tell you. You need to attend to it. You would attend to that kind of fear. So if we just put that to one side for the moment, we don't really need to do a whole episode on that kind of fear, I don't think. The next kind is one that's kind of like one removed from that, which you could call a kind of fear of failure. And so that can come in many ways, like a fear of not fitting in, a fear of making a mistake, a fear of being disliked. And it is a primal fear. And it goes back to that whole thing of, we are a cooperative species. We evolved in small bands of people. And it was important that we stayed with them and weren't ejected from that band. And so it has a real link to the first kind of fear. It is ultimately a threat to our safety, but it's not that immediate, I need to take action right now kind of threat. And of course, in our culture, a lot of the time when this kind of fear of failure, this fear of being ejected comes up, it often is quite a way removed from a very real threat to our safety. We experience it as a very real threat to our safety, but it actually isn't. And this fear is often a distraction. It's often something that it's not about dismissing it. It's not about not even listening. It can be heard, but the distinction here is we don't necessarily need to heed it. Unlike the first kind of fear, which absolutely, heed it or you may well die. This is hear it, may not want to heed it. And I'll talk a bit more about that in a moment, but hopefully that distinction is clear. The last kind of fear, which is something I've been seeing more and more clearly over the last couple of years, and then even in the last month or two, as we've been conceiving of wild medicine. And you could call this soul fear or power fear, fear of power. And the way I'm distinguishing this is this kind of fear is a signpost to our soul path. It's actually a symbol of our kind of medicine or our kind of power. And we won't necessarily know it's that. And I'm going to talk a lot more about both those second types of fear in a moment. But for the moment, if you can just understand that this is something where we're feeling a deep calling in a certain direction and is bringing up a whole load of fear, which can, again, easily get in our way. It can be a real kind of stop sign. And the invitation I'm going to be making to you through this episode is to start to see this as a signpost rather than a stop sign. The challenge to all of this is all of those kinds of fear feel very similar in our bodies. I'm not going to say the same. I think this is the part of the, how can I say this? Part of mastering this dance between fear and possibility is to start to attune for how they actually can feel quite different. But certainly without this deep communion with our bodies, without an understanding of the way these different types of fears show up, we can experience them all exactly the same. And therefore, we respond to them all exactly the same. We respond to them actually as that very first kind of fear. We respond to them as a threat to my life fear. So whether it's something we actually would benefit from heeding or not, we heed it. We shrink, we flee, we fight, we freeze. We do all those things that make perfect sense when there's an actual threat to our safety because we can't tell the difference. And again, intellectually, we can tell the difference. This is very much an embodied experience where it just feels too frightening to carry on going whichever way we were going to go. The other thing to say is the reason this is important and helpful to know is we'll often see that the times that fear is at its greatest is often equal to the biggest possibility. They almost always, not going to say it's entirely true, but almost always go hand in hand. So recognizing, and this is particularly true, I would say, when it comes to that third kind of fear, this soul fear, that I see is our biggest possibility of all. Those times where we get that sense of, whoa, this would be me being at my most revealed, my most expressed, and it is as scary as hell. The possibility is enormous. The possibility to being in our full power and radiating out to the world from there doesn't get scarier and doesn't get more possibility filled. So that's why this is helpful to recognize. They are unlikely to exist separately, fear and possibility. They are usually going to come together as twins. And the more we can understand the roles of them and how we can dance between them, the more in a place of sovereignty will be, more able to make choices in alignment with our sovereign vision for our lives. The other thing is, hang on. I was talking to the author, Lucy H. Pierce, on a podcast episode this morning, which was amazing, absolutely amazing, blew me away. And could say chance, could say synchronicity. I like to say synchronicity. A lot of the topics that I'm talking about here and things that I was thinking about before she and I spoke ended up showing up in our interview, which, I thought that in itself was fascinating. And one of the things we were talking about is these life initiations, these messy portals in life, such as birth, puberty, sex, death, and just big ruptures in the fabric of our lives or in our culture. And so we're talking about this idea that these are those times where this idea of ourselves is these like nice, neat units that fit nicely into the slot for our kind of unit in our culture. In these times of mess, we still sometimes try to do them perfectly, but they're a huge invitation. And often we get dragged kicking and screaming into that place of, okay, let it take me. And sometimes that is beyond our choice, like childbirth being a great example. There's only so long you can hold on to the reins of control when you're in childbirth. There's a point for most of us where life takes over. So the reason I'm bringing this up now is they're often also the times where fear is most present, the times of what I'm going to call here rupture. And again, at the moment, we're going through a big cultural rupture in 2020, but also again, in times of personal rupture, fear is going to be high. It's scary when our lives have been kind of going along a fairly nice linear pattern, and then there's a rupture. Of course, it's going to be scary. It's going to bring up all those fears of, I'm going to lose what's precious to me. I'm going to be in a worse position than I was. All of those kind of primal fears that we've just spoken about in terms of being kind of thrown out, ejected. So understandably, it is going to create a lot of fear. And again, the invitation here is to recognize it's because of the amount of possibility that's also present in those ruptures. They come together. And the more we are able to see that, the more we're able to be present to both. So again, we're looking at this culturally at the moment. Again, lots and lots and lots of fear being driven up, quite understandably. This isn't me making fear at all something that you should be shaming yourself for, or I'm certainly not shaming you. Again, completely understandable. What the invitation is to recognize there's also at least an equal amount of possibility available too. Okay, well, let me take a breather. Okay, this is, I've made a note here, actually, I'm going to talk about. So the other thing about these ruptures, I was seeing it earlier, like at these times, it's like the veil between worlds is thin. It's a very kind of liminal space. It's a space where reality doesn't look quite as fixed. It's a place where often we'll end up having really vivid dreams. It's the times where we'll see a lot of things that seem more symbolic. I was talking to someone yesterday, I think it was, about animal symbolism, how we suddenly see these like particularly unusual animals on unusual places. Could be other kinds of synchronicity, repeated numbers on a clock, things like this. It's like that veil between the worlds is thinner. And again, for me, this is again it's a clue. to the amount of possibilities available. This isn't even just possibility in the realm of the known. This isn't just kind of, oh, this is the possibility where I could get a pay rise, or this is a possibility where, I don't know, my brain's gone completely blank at this moment. I might meet new friends. It's a terrible example. I can't think of any normal possibilities at the moment. I think you get what I'm saying. Kind of those things where we're kind of like, yeah, life can sometimes be good. This could be possible. I'm not even talking about that kind of possibility. The reason I'm saying this idea of the veil between worlds is thin at these times is because anything could happen. These are the times where we really get the opportunity to be in the mystery, be in the unknown. And so more and more, it's not so much that I feel less fear. It's the times that I'm present to a lot of fear. Again, in my own system, this is talking about not even just looking outside, but talking about personally. There's also this kind of other part of me that's going, this is scary. This means the veil is thin. This means there's not just a ton of possibility, but this is as magical as it gets. Really, anything could happen. So, right, which I'm just trying to decide if there's anything I want to now illuminate of the different types of fear based on everything I've just said. No, I'm going to say one more thing before we go back there, actually. And I think I might have written a post about this recently. I can't remember which post it was. I think it might have been just a little snippet of something I put into our Facebook group, actually. And it was talking about the way that we have often a sense of what we desire. So we have our kind of life as is, and then we have these goals, these desires, these results that we'd like to happen outside of them. And the interesting thing is we often really recognize that that is outside of our norm, of course, because otherwise it wouldn't be something different. So we get that contrast. We see, okay, if my, I don't know, current business income is this, and I want to increase it by 10%, let's say, that exists outside my norm. What we often forget or maybe don't even see is, because that exists outside our norm, we're going to have to travel outside of our norm, therefore outside of our comfort zone, into the space of that possibility. I hope that makes sense. So if this is our norm, it's also our comfort zone. It's what we know. It's what our system is comfortable with. It's what our system's used to inhabiting. We will need to expand out of that zone in order to get or create whatever this thing is that we're feeling this desire for. And again, anytime we're expanding into the unknown, it's very likely, to the point where you could almost say it's always going to be the case, is going to also drive up fear. And so this, again, is a really helpful thing to recognize. If you are committed to expansion in any way, shape, or form, it's going to require this expansion outside of the known, outside of your comfort zone, and therefore will feel scary. It's meant to. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It doesn't mean you need to have a better technique at calming your mind. It doesn't mean that it's because you've got a terrible method for doing it. It just means that comes with the territory. Literally, the territory outside your comfort zone comes with that feeling. Okay. And now we're just going to nip back up to talk about how that relates to those different kinds of fear. So the first one, again, we don't need to talk about that very real threat to life. You've got that handled. The second one, this idea of the kind of fear of rejection, fear of failure. Likely anything you want to do of any merit, any kind of sense of expansion, anything different is likely to come with a degree of that. Culturally, whilst we say we celebrate success and differences, we also know that there is a large level of we don't accept it. It isn't okay. There's still big taboos around things like money. So But firstly, anytime you are wanting to step even slightly outside the norm of your own life or the norm of your culture, you are going to get this sense of, oh, it's scary. And this is obviously not intellectually what you're hearing, but I'm going to end up being thrown out of my tribe. Therefore, I'm going to kind of wander lost and lonely until I die. Therefore, it's scary. Therefore, I must stop. And that's where I'm saying it's really important to be able to recognize that's what's happening. And again, not with this idea of let's just bypass that or dismiss it. It's really, a lot of our work is about saying all is welcome. All of our feelings are welcome, including fear. And so listen to that, hear it, let it speak. In fact, sometimes it's really helpful to really say to fear, okay, this little part of me that's feeling scared, tell me what's going on for you. What is it you're fearing? And then what? And then what? Give it a voice. Then, if you can discern this isn't a real threat, which again is fairly evident once we start to look at it, hear it, but don't heed it. Or as I said in a post last night, also in the Facebook group, something like you can give your fear a voice, I think I said, but you don't need to let it have a say. And so that's another way of seeing it. You can hear it, but not heed it. You can let it speak. You don't need to let it have a say over how you're choosing to live your life. Right. Taking a quick breather. Okay. The last kind of fear, this what I described as soul fear or power fear, this is where it is so important for us to understand this, because this really is the difference between us living lives of deep meaning, lives where we get to really be our medicine or not. And so this kind of fear happens when we start to step foot on our soul path. It can be right at the beginning. It can be that very first breadcrumb that we see and kind of go, oh, that's feeling like it's for me. Or it can be a little way along it or a long way along it. I still get every kind of stage. I mean, they're not kind of formal stages, but every time I feel that big expansion, another step deeper along my soul path, it likely will feel like I'm about to describe. So again, this is something that we get more and more attuned to, feeling in our hearts, feeling this is for me, this is what I'm here to do. And that doesn't necessarily have to be, I mentioned earlier about wild medicine. That could be very much about your work, this soul work that you're here to embody and express into the world. It could be a particular relationship you're meant to be in. It could be a country you're meant to travel to. It could be anything. But again, it's starting to get that attunement to how that feels. That's how you'll get that sense in your body and specifically often in your heart, this is for me. Again, that doesn't mean it won't come with fear. It likely means it's going to come with enormous amounts of fear because it has so much possibility. Our soul path is the place of the biggest, most magical, richest possibility. It's where all of our power lies. Therefore, it will look as scary as hell. Doesn't mean we shouldn't walk it. It means we need to know it's going to feel that way most of the time. So this is a place. And again, I can't kind of do that attunement for you. Again, certainly when we work with people, whether that be one-to-one or in forthcoming Wake Wild Medicine, we can really work with you to help attune to like who you are, that medicine you came here to be. That's one of the gifts that Jonathan and I both have, really be able to see this is the gift this person's here to birth into the world, to be in the world. If you're a listener and you're not going to have that opportunity to work with us personally, this is something you can get more and more attuned to yourself. Likely will take longer, but it's there. It's definitely there for you to start to get that sense of resonance when something is calling you from a soul level versus something that's a kind of demand from the outside world. So when we have that sense of this is for me and it's really scary, it's being able to recognize, okay, this is definitely the kind of fear that I can hear. And this is where it's nuanced. It isn't as simple as the last kind of fear where it's kind of, I can hear it, but I'm not going to heed it. There is a kind of heeding, and it's actually a heeding in the way of like, this has information. The very way this kind of fear is showing up is a clue, is information here. It's a kind of deeper sense of like, yes, this is for me. And often it has a kind of, within what we're really fearing, it's a clue to that is what we are. And so that, again, if I look at the work we're doing with wild medicine, so much of my fear through all the years, but particularly since I've been in this work, has been a fear of being weird and different, and also a fear of being kind of like lost in the mystery. I recorded, I think it was last month, if it wasn't, it was the month before, the episode on living a magic-led life. For most of my life, I've really feared being like lost in the magic, you could say. And so recognizing like those twin fears really, and I'm saying them now in this kind of like quite flippant way, these were like fears that kept me stuck, kept me hiding, kept me from being my medicine for most of my life. These weren't just kind of like, oh, it's a little bit scary. These were like, no, I'm not going there kind of scary. I can feel the emotion rising talking about this actually. And there's information in the thing I was scared of. I was really scared to stand out as something different. I was really scared to stand out as someone who in any way was kind of related to magic and medicine and mystical things. Like that was my like huge, huge fears for me, and real clues into what I was actually here to do. So you'll have your own version of that. But again, what I see over and over again, when it is those soul fears, there will be information. So this is here and heed in a way that isn't stopping you, but is actually allowing you to go deeper onto your path. Okay, I think we're nearly at the end of the time here together. Is there anything else? Oh, yes. So last thing on this. If you know our work at all, you'll know we're constantly talking about embodiment and our nervous systems and allowing ourselves to kind of be with what comes with any kind of expansion. And again, because of everything we've just been talking about, part of expansion is the fear that gets driven up. So finding a way to do the embodiment work where you're able to hold yourself through increasing amounts of fear is important, is necessary. There's a point otherwise where our expansion has to stop because we just can't handle that level of fear, that level of energy, pure energy coursing through our system. So I'm not going to go into kind of all the ways we can do that. I've probably talked about this at length on pretty much every other show I've done. But again, we really include this in all the work we do because we see it's vital. If we can't hold that level of sensation in our system, it's going to be very, very difficult to keep walking. It's going to be very difficult to move through those two types of fear that we've been talking about mostly. The fear of this kind of being ejected from the tribe, and also this fear of walking our soul path. If we can't hold that level of fear in our system, we can't also hold that level of possibility in our system either. Therefore, we don't get to go there. We don't get to get the goodies. We stay stuck. Is there anything else I would like to? I feel cool. I wasn't planning to do this, but I've got a Divine Feminine Oracle card here that's just kind of the last one I drew that's on my desk. And I'm going to read it. It's one called, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this correctly, Rabia, the Queen of Saintly Women. And the little line at the bottom of it is, I'm in service of divine love. I move the way love asks me to move. Which might seem unrelated. And yet, we've been talking so much about fear. And the polarity to fear, the kind of the other end of the pole to fear, of course, is love. And I guess another word for possibility could be love. this is what I'm seeing, particularly when, again, we're talking about us walking our soul path. It's really us walking that path of love, that path back to loving ourselves, that path of being a channel for divine love, that path of showing up as divine love. So I think now I am done on this gorgeous topic of possibility and fear. If you've got any questions, let me know. Always really happy to talk more, write more, answer questions, do whatever's needed. And again, thank you so much if you are taking part in our Facebook group, whether that be voting or commenting. I really appreciate you. It makes the whole thing so much more enjoyable for me. I think that's us done for now. If you are watching this on the Facebook Live and not used to listening to our podcast, go check that out too. It's weekly and has a whole host of interviews or me just talking like this. And oh my goodness, we have had some amazing interviewees over the years. And just recently, whoa, we've had a few literally over the last month that have been blowing me away. And then the last few I've recorded that haven't yet gone out have also just been like, wow. I feel like in the last month or so, I've said to Jonathan, that's probably in my top 5 podcasts of the last 6 years. And I'm saying it so much, I don't know whether I need to, there's constantly juggling in my mind. Like, what are those top 5? But yes, I mean, phenomenal ones we've got coming up. So you can listen to those at primalhappiness.co/podcast. If you're interested in working with us in any of the different ways we can do so, and again, I've mentioned Wake the Wild Medicine. We have other ways to work with us too. Go check those out at primalhappiness.co/go deeper. I've also been mentioning our Facebook group a lot. It's a free Facebook group. Post all kinds of things in there. Sometimes it's just something I found funny. Sometimes it's something really deep and meaningful. It's all sorts. Go check that out. I mean, the key thing to say about it is, it's a place for people who are on this path of rewilding and actualization to gather together and be seen and heard. So it's delicious just for that. Go check that out at facebook.com/group/primalhappiness. Really hope to see you there. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for joining me. Have a gorgeous weekend. Lots of love. Bye-bye. So that's all for this month. I would love to know what you took from this episode. And if you'd like to share what came up for you, the Primal Happiness Facebook group is a great place to do that. And as I just said, it's just a gorgeous place to be anyway. So if you're not already in there, come join us. The link for that is facebook.com/group/primalhappiness. And I would also love to have your feedback, questions, and topic suggestions for future shows. And the group is a wonderful place to post those too. And of course, if you'd like to join me live for the next show, you would be very welcome. Just like our Facebook page, facebook.com/primalhappiness. And you'll see the event there that gives the time and date for the next show. But basically, quite simple. It'll be airing live on the first Friday of every month. If you'd like to get the notes and links for everything I spoke about this week, hop on over to the show notes and they're at primalhappiness.co/episode 297. My goodness, approaching 300 episodes. If you're feeling called to Waking the Wild Medicine, the deepest of journeys of the soul, go claim your place now at primalhappiness.co/medicine. Is already filling up with the most magical of people. Oh my goodness, I can't even tell you how much it's delighting my heart to see this. Or if you have got some questions, if you're not totally sure if it's for you, do reach out. There's a link on that page if you'd like to arrange a call with myself or Jonathan to explore if it's right for you. If you don't want to miss out on next week's episode, head on over to Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, or your Android or iOS app of choice. Hit that subscribe button. That way, you are going to get each episode auto-magically to your device as soon as it's released. And the reason that's really worth doing is we have got some amazing, absolutely amazing episodes coming up. I feel like in the last month, we've just been so blessed with just stellar guests, and that is continuing. So if you've been enjoying some of the shows we've had recently, oh my goodness, you are going to love what we've got coming up for you. Thank you so much for listening. You've been wonderful. Catch you again next Tuesday.